about version numbers. As you might know, 2 years ago, Apex changed, as all the Oracle products, Apex changed the versioning model, right? It was Apex 4, 4.1, 4.2, then between 4.1 and 4.2 there were the patch sets. Same was for 5.0, for 5.1, and then in mid-2018, it was Apex 18.1, and then a few months later we had Apex 18.2, then a few months later 19.1, 19.2. So all the Oracle products changed at that time, changed their versioning scheme to that year model. So the first number, the 19 here, indicates the year in which the release came out. Right? That's true for the database, that's true for middleware, that's true for SQL developer, for odds, for almost every Oracle product. I think there are a few exceptions, but almost all Oracle products use that versioning scheme. And the second number behind the dot for Apex indicates which release in that year this was. So Apex 19.2 tells you this is the second release of Apex in the year 2019. And the important thing, so it's not just that information which I want to know. Oh, we have to go for the terminal releases, right? Because they are the most stable one, right? That is database 11.1, database 11.2. Oh, we have to go to 11.2, right? We have to go to 12.2. And that's deep in the DBA's mind, right? Go to terminal for, and then the last patch set of 4.2 for as long as possible before moving to something within the 5 release range. So, and these times are over, right? Don't let the .2 fool you, tweeted Mike a few months ago. When you compare, for instance, 19.2 versus the upcoming release 21, you will see that 19.2 has way more new features, even though it's a .2 release, right? So it's really the only thing which 19.2 tells you is second release in 2019. It's not more or less new feature, it's not more or less a maintenance release, it only is second in 2019. So having said that, we can go into the details, and here is a list of what 19.2 brought, and even that list tells you that's quite a lot of stuff, right? Especially when you look at the first, at the left side even, right? Faceted search, I will demo that a bit, is a major new feature, which is a very powerful new component. List of values, we know list of values for ages, but 19.2 brings major changes regarding all sorts of list of values. And I hope to find the time to show that to you as well. The team development area in the application builder has been completely revamped. So this is actually a completely new application. We improved REST support. So I will talk about that a bit later. So tiny improvements on data loading, tiny improvements on SQL Workshop, universal theme improvements, and that what we have that with every Apex release, that the underlying JavaScript libraries, jQuery libraries, and Jet libraries are being upgraded to the latest versions. That's actually not really noteworthy. We have that in every Apex release, right? Every Apex release refreshes the underlying libraries. So that's also something I would like to mention, since we have 2 releases a year, and with the 18.1, 18.2, 19.1, 19.2, as I mentioned. Of course, if you have just 5 months between 2 releases, there is not really room to produce the patch sets as we produced before, right? 18.1.1, 18.1.2, we would just be releasing and doing nothing else if we did that. But of course, every release has issues, and some of these issues can't wait until the next release. And for that reason, of course, there are patches for each of these Apex releases. And to keep the patching simple and easy to manage, we are collecting all bug fixes into what we call a bundle patch. And the bundle patch for 19.2 is this patch number, right? And this patch number now contains 20, 25 fixes for various issues we found in 19.2 and which we decided these issues can't wait until 22. We need to enable you guys to apply a patch to fix these issues. So if you are going to install 19.2 and you want to be sure to have all the latest bug fixes, download this patch set from my Oracle support and apply it on top of your 19.2 installation. And then you have the latest and greatest with all the fixes. And same applies to the other Apex versions. So if you have Apex 19.1 up and running, then and you're running into issues, then you might have a look into this patch set to see whether it contains fixes for issues. Right? Same goes for Apex 18.2 and 18.1. By the way, which Apex release are you working on? So who's already on 19.2? Okay, 19.1, 18.2, 18.1, so 5.1, 5.0. So a few people didn't raise their hands so far, right? And I've seen that. So and, we won't stop until I have seen at least, I have an impression. So 4.2? Nobody? That's totally okay. We can talk about everything, right? So older than 4.2? 5.1. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So of course, before 18.1 for the 5.1 and 5.0 releases, there are the patch sets you can download. So if you are on 5.1, do see that over and over again that I see customers running 5.1.0. Please don't do this, right? I wouldn't say you have to go to the latest and greatest. I can totally understand that you can't upgrade from 5.1 now, but at least please guys, install 5.1.4, the latest patch set with all the fixes, right? That's what I would say the minimum requirement, right? Same goes for 5.0. 5.04 is the latest patch set for 5.0, and that contains all the fixes. Also, security issues are fixed in these patch sets. So for a given release, please guys apply the latest patch set to have around installation, right? Okay, so now we can dive into the new features, and the biggest feature in 19.2, of course, is faceted search. Right? And that is a new Apex component. And the goal of this Apex component is to provide this kind of interface to your end users. And you all have seen these kind of interfaces before. So you bought some stuff on Amazon, and that's pretty much that. Right? You have your products you can order here, and then there is brand, color, and whatever price range. Or if you, so it's a pattern which is typically used on shopping sites, right? So all the attributes of the products are on the left, and then the individual products are here. Or on real estate sites, it's also very common on car sales sites or car exchange sites, typically where it's about to trade products, right? Whether it's about trading products between individuals, or whether it's a company selling the products, but the focus is the products and their attributes. And the interesting thing about faceted search is the counts, which you can see in parentheses over here, right? When you check one of these, then of course the list here collapses and shows only products which match your choice, but also the counts in the other facets are being adjusted. And to show you how this works, let me run an example page. So I would just use this example here. How to create a faceted search, you will get that in a minute. So this is a movies table, right? And again, we have that report over here. You can see there is not much of a formatting. And actually, I think this doesn't demo very well. Let me at least hide one of the columns. So, and let me hide the overview column with all the text. So that looks a bit better. So, and again, we have the genre column, we have the country column where the movie was produced, the production company, and so on. And for instance, I want to reduce that to comedy, right? And you can see the report refreshed. It's still a lot of data here, but those counts have been adjusted. So I only want to have French comedies, right? And then I get 14, and these adjusted as well, right? So, and that's the key attribute of faceted search, that you have the interaction between the results area and the facets, and in between the facets, right? Everything reacts on each other, right? And the interesting thing here is not so much that you can build up with Apex. If you have enough time, right, and coffee or alcohol, whatever you need, then you can build that with Type 1 as well, right? It's just a lot of work, right? Because you have to figure a few things out. So you will need dynamic actions, right, to catch the events here. You need to refresh these, and you need to refresh that. So you need to capture all the events. And then the funny bit is you need to compute these counts, right? And you need to craft the right SQL query. And so it's a lot of work to do that. And the way of this kind of user interface is very common. And in Apex 19.2, and that's the actual value of 19.2, and I will show you how this is being created, that we get that as a declarative Apex component. And we will use a table we all know. Let's try that on the end table. So, and then you can see it shows you, and Apex does a lot of work here, right? You can see that this page already shows a few statistics, right? So you can see it tells you, oh, this column has 14 distinct values. The average length is this, and it contains nulls or not. So Apex has an internal component. There is no, you can't see that anywhere in the builder. But Apex internally maintains what we call a dictionary cache. And in that dictionary cache, we store additional information on tables. Not only what the Oracle database stores anyway, but additional stuff. And that additional stuff allows us to decide whether we offer creating a facet for a column, like here, or whether we don't, like here, right? Apex detected the end null is has 14 distinct values, the table has 14 distinct rows, so that doesn't make any sense to generate a facet for this column. However, job makes sense, right? So only three out of the end table columns make sense to create a facet. You can disable if you don't want to have the job facet, for instance. And then when you click create, Apex does all the job for you. Right? So you can see in Page Designer there is our facets region, and there is the report region. Everything has been created out of the box. And you can see there is even, it doesn't say items here. It says facets. Facets is a declarative thing in Apex. Apex knows what a facet is. It's more than a page item. And for that reason, you also don't see dynamic actions to capture your clicks here. Apex knows how faceted search works, and Apex knows that when you click a facet, that something has to happen. And for that, so it's really a declarative component in Apex. It's not the wizard doesn't just do the work for you, that it creates all the components you would need if you created that yourself. It's a component which is part of the Apex engine, right? And when we run that component, then we can see the well-known end table, and again the facets, and you can see when I do changes to the job facet, those counts adjust. You can see the department. It already uses an LOV because that's also what the dictionary cache does. It tests whether there is a foreign key relationship to another table, and if yes, it creates a list of values and creates the facet correctly using the list of values. So you needed to do nothing in order to have department names instead of department numbers here, right? And then you have the usual faceted search experience, and where you can pick and choose and narrow down the result list until you're satisfied, right? And whenever you're building an Apex page where the end user is about to find individual things in some larger set of data, and I think that's the sweet spot for faceted search, right? When if your requirement is, let's say, similar to a shopping site, you have your end user is interested in finding individual things. That's important. It's not about finding aggregates, right? When you're, it's not about filtering your report down to, let's say, 50,000 words. Not sure if faceted search is the right thing to use there. But if you're looking for individual things in some larger and hardly overseeable data set, and then faceted search can really help you to find things, right? Okay, questions about faceted search? Yes?
How many facets can you define?
So there is no technical limit. You can define facet as long as your end users accept it, right? I think for when you also look at the typical product sites, I think up to 10 makes sense. Then the site becomes almost unusable, right? And Apex doesn't complain about 50. At some point, I think you will hit some limits when it's about when it generates the SQL query to compute accounts. But I think 10, 50, 20 facets, it will just work, right? The question is whether the page is usable with so many facets. An important thing about facets also is take care on the amount of items here. Right? On the end table, it's always super simple and easy to understand. I think when you have those checkbox facets, there is also not a technical limit. So the technical limit we imposed here is is 5,000. Apex starts to complain if you would have more than 5,000 checkboxes here. But if you reach that limit, something went wrong before, right? Because that's not usable anymore. So checkboxes, the typical rule of thumb is actually not more than 20. Right? So if you have more than 20 checkboxes, UI designers would consider the site unusable. Right? Same goes for select lists, and faceted search is there for end-to-end to be easy to consume for end users, and that means that we should take a bit care what we are presenting here. And just throwing 200 entries on the table of your end users isn't usable faceted search, right? So an overseeable, easy to understandable set of values should appear here. In 21, faceted search will be extended. So in 21, you will be able to have cascading facet relationships. So the typical example, you pick a department, and then the job facet, for instance, collapses to show only jobs which are in that department. So that comes with 22. 21, so the next Apex release, 2019, each facet is independent from the other facets.
Can this suddenly be defined as an interval?
It can, yeah, it can, and it actually, this is my development box, and actually it does, right? So the salary column normally comes up as a range facet, and then you can have, we can do that. So let me, cost a bit time, but let me show you this, right? So let me first clear those, because I think that's important, and it also shows you how faceted search you don't have to accept everything what the wizard generates. As always in Apex, you can change everything, right? So here we can see this is a checkbox facet, and currently the facet uses the distinct values list of values. So based on the distinct values in the table column. So what you can do here is first use another LOV, right? And you have the usual LOV choices here. And you can have different facet types, right? And we will use a range facet. And for a range facet, we need to use a different LOV. We need to use an LOV. You can't use distinct values for range. And so I will use static values here. And I will now show you how to configure your own range facet, right? So the display value, let's say, is below 1000. And then the important character now is the pipe. So the pipe separates lower and higher value. So this is the range below 1000. Then we have between 1000 and let's say 2. And then we have this one. And then we can say above. And that is the definition of a range facet. So the only thing you have to memorize is that the return value now actually contains two values, right? So once we have stored that, we will have our range facet here. Oh, I made a radio group facet out of it. So then let me have the select multiple. So and now you can work with ranges as you would expect for this kind of salary or price or whatever things, right? Actually, the wizard should do this out of the box, and the wizard also finds range buckets for you. And this is nice for demoing, but in reality, I think the buckets which the wizard generates are never right. So you will need to adjust that after the wizard created your page. And this is how you do it. So that's the important thing in page designer. You can change almost everything, right? Good. Let's go to the next feature. No. And that's about list of values. And list of values has very, very major changes in 1902. Right, that's a feature which was actually planned for 1901 even, and when we planned it, we didn't see how much consequences this had, and so we needed more time, and so the feature went into 1902. But I think it was absolutely worth it because we not only have a new pop-up LOV, which you might have seen on Twitter or in some demos. That's the UI aspect of this new feature that we have now. If you use a pop-up LOV, that you have a really modern component now, right? Modern and not like this current pop-up LOV, which is kind of dated and the look and feel sucks a bit. And the new one is really modern. And the other thing is that LOVs now support the complete have the full support for local and remote data sources. So you can create a list of values on an external RESTful service, for instance, right? So you have your data, you have a RESTful service which provides some lookup data, some subsidiary data, for instance, and you want to use that as an LOV in your forms for list of values or checkboxes or whatever. You can source your LOV directly from that remote data source. You could do this before as well. Required some coding, table functions, SQL. Now it works all out of the box, right? And also, this is what the screenshot here shows. An LOV doesn't have this display and return value, this only display and return value anymore. You can have additional display columns, right? And this is the answer for you. I'm pretty sure you all did this, right? That you concatenated the display value with commas and pipes to transport that additional information which the end user needs. And this is all now available out of the box. And I think that's also worth showing. Also, time is gets tighter, but again, this is worth it. So let me create a new shared LOV. And again, I will use the end table. That's a table we all know. And I don't have to explain it. So this looks pretty familiar. And here it is new, right? A dynamic LOV was, in the old days, it was just a SQL query. And the SQL query had to return exactly 2 columns. And the first was the display column, and the second was the return column. Always, right? And this changed. We still can use a SQL query, but the SQL query can, let's say, select star from app. And now display and return columns become a declarative thing. So we declare what the display and the return column is. And in this case, Apex makes a good proposition. So, and this creates the list of values, but we are not done yet. So, and we can edit the LOV. Here's the SQL query again. And here we can have, for all features of the LOV, we can have, we declare the columns, right? So, and for the pop-up LOV, the additional display columns is important. So let's just pick everything. And we can also define whether a column is visible, searchable, or whether there is a format mask, right? Let's use this one as the format mask. We want to have another heading as well, and let me save that now. And now let me go back and let's now use that thing. Let's create a new page quickly. So, and now let me create a region, and on that region I'm creating a page item, and that is, a pop-up LOV. And for the pop-up LOV, I can pick my list of values, and all these shiny new features are available if you use a shared LOV, right? Then you have the additional colors, right? Then you can configure format masks, headings, and all the stuff I just showed you. You can still have inline LOVs. That means entering a SQL query right here at the item. But if you're using an inline LOV, then you're still limited. 2 columns. First is the display column, second is the return column. So that's important to know. The new infrastructure, also LOVs on external data sources, these additional columns, and all these declarative things are only available for shared LOVs. So to leverage these features, create a shared LOV, and then use the shared LOV. And your existing applications should work as before, right? Existing LOVs are not changed. So here's the new pop-up LOV, and this is how it looks like. Right, and I think that's a huge improvement to the old pop-up LOV, right? And here's the heading, right? You can see it uses the format mask. We have all these columns, so no longer concatenating columns for a result column. I think that's a great UI improvement, and it was high time for us to provide this, but now it's there. Okay. So back to the slides. Okay, that's the pop-up LOV. I've shown that. So the new team development. I will walk over these other features a bit quicker. I would like to show you one more tiny feature, which I think is super important and super cool. And maybe then we will have at least a few minutes to have a sneak look into 21. So anybody in the room used team development before? Okay, so we can shorten that. You might have a look now. It's a totally different application, right? It's modeled after. You might have visited GitHub before, reviewed a GitHub project, downloaded stuff from GitHub, and GitHub has an issue management, right? If you find something, you log an issue on GitHub, right? And GitHub tracks everything as an issue. You find a bug, it's an issue, right? You have a feature request, hey, that's missing, you find an issue. It's pretty much like the new team development works, right? There are just issues, and And the new team development is a minimalistic issue management like the GitHub issues. So people can track, it can enter an issue, the issue can be assigned to a developer, the developer can work on the issues, add comments, assign it to another developer, the issue has a status, which is then open, working on, closed, issue has labels, right? And it's, so for small teams, if you have nothing else, so if you have Jira already, don't even think about it, right? Because what you have is better. This is for those who don't have anything else. Tiny companies, no Jira available, nothing else available, and before starting working with just emails or Excel sheets, this might be the better solution, right? And that's what this aims for, right? If you're reviewing it and telling us, hey, our Jira is way better, I would say, of course it is, right? Because that's not what we intend. We don't intend to replace Jira with this. Okay, REST. This is 92 also took a step further regarding REST support. That's a story we started with Apex 18.1 when we introduced external data sources, so REST services or REST-enabled SQL. Andrea will talk about REST-enabled SQL later on. These external data sources were introduced as declarative first-class data sources. Apex was able to deal with REST services before, of course, and but you had to code a lot of pure SQL. Apex Web Service package, then you had to parse the JSON yourself, and then you had to build table functions, and then you were able to create a report on top of a RESTful service. And the goal in Apex 18.1 and until today is to make this process easier and first and foremost declarative, right? So you're able to create a reference to an external RESTful service that's a web source module. I won't have time to demo it today, otherwise Peter will become upset if I stole all his time. But the interesting thing is you have a web source that's a declarative reference to an external RESTful service. And in Apex components like reports, forms, these web source modules are similar to a table or a SQL query. Right? Components can be created directly on top of the external RESTful service reference, making development with RESTful service way more easy. Right? And in 18.1, we introduced that support for read-only components, report, charts, calendar. In 19.1, we added support for form pages. In 19.2, we finished that story with at least for now, we finished that story with adding support for list of values and for interactive grid. Actually, lists are still on my list. Lists are still on my list for REST support, but that might take a bit more time. So and then we have that data source picture here. You have Apex, ports in front of that, your browser, and we can work locally, of course. And here is REST-enabled SQL, which can talk to other Oracle databases. And we will talk about it. We can talk to external REST APIs. We can talk about over database links to other databases. So whenever somebody tells you that Apex is limited to just the Oracle database, feel free to show him that slide. Right? We can talk. Or you as Apex developers can talk to everything, right, and to every other system. Yeah, that's the REST-enabled interactive grid. So that's interactive grid looks exactly as it looked before in 19.2. The only difference is that REST-enabled that you can now data can come from a RESTful service, and also if you're changing rows and hit save. Interactive Grid can use the REST endpoints to update and change data on the RESTful service. Okay, so tiny things, loading data into existing tables. So 19.1 introduced the new data loading in SQL Workshop, and with just a minor issue that this new wizard was only able to load into new tables. And that was completed. Data loading can load into existing table in 19.2. We have a few improvements for SQL Workshop, right? Just to make things a bit easier. So if you have a table in SQL Workshop, you can create an app directly on that table. We have code editor. We have replaced text fields with code editors in some places. An Apex style. So you might have seen it on the Oracle website, which is sort of this look and feel. It's apexoracle.com. It's all sorts of products which are moving towards this sort of UI. And in Apex, that was Shakib's task for 21 to align. So it's not 100%. It's not 100% implementation of the Oracle Redwood standard, but it's an alignment, right? You still see those things here. It's still also work in progress. But you can see it follows these guidelines. So that's what we can immediately see. Then there is some other thing which I would like to show. Let me run this application. Come on. There we are. Let me log in. So it's tiny. Who has very good eyes and sees the new feature?
Top left.
It's very at the top, and it's hard to.
Is the
A few seconds, maybe somebody spots it. Otherwise,
the
I'll
menu
give the
hamburger?
first hint. So somebody has an idea? So it's outside. So let me give you a hint. It's outside of the browser viewport. So it's part of the browser, but it's not the content.
Friendly URL.
Yes. Somebody has seen it, so let me show it to everybody. Right, this is the new friendly URL scheme. It's an application property. So for new applications, it's enabled. For existing applications, it will be disabled, of course. And you can see this is the orgs, this is the workspace, then the R. That's important because that's how we implemented friendly URL. It's implemented using an orgs feature. And we had that technology in place for years because static files are using the same technique since a long time. I can't really exactly remember when we introduced that. I think it was 5.0, but I'm not sure. We are using the same technology to provide friendly URLs. Then you can see the application ID, the page alias, and all the everything behind the page items is in the usual URL style. Right? You have if we have page items, you will see ampersand item equals something, ampersand item equals something. So it will look like a plain normal web server URL. Right? As I said, we enable that feature by default only for new applications, because for existing applications we can never know how many places you have with hard-coded F*P URLs, and these won't work anymore then. And the message for you is, whenever you are building URLs, right, don't hard-code these, please. Always, I think that's good practice anyway, because you want to enable session state protection. So it's always recommended to use apexutil.prepare URL for your URLs, right? Always use that. Peter?
Shouldn't it be, what's it, Apex page get URL?
Apex page get URL, right? That's even better.
Plus, can you nest, like if you have a nested directory structure in the URL, so you have customers and then edit customer?
I don't think so, no. So this is that. So you can't configure mappings, for instance, right? So this, and that would be required to have what you want to have. So it's currently the simple scheme of application ID, page ID, or page alias, if there is one.
Any idea, could the page alias be bigger to allow? I know it's restricted to 20 or so characters.
I would even need to look, to be honest. So this, of course, can also be an application in this, right? Of course. As far as I know, we didn't do any change to the page alias. So what's possible with the page alias, that's possible here. So maybe what you are asking for, larger things here, nested things, is something for the next iteration. Okay, I'm getting the timeout here. Just one last thing. I want to emphasize that once more. Whenever you are, that's also important, looking forward to this feature. Peter said it, and whenever you are working with, when you are linking to your page and you are building the URLs yourself, right? You are not using a branch or declarative stuff in a button. Whenever you are doing it yourself, make sure to always use Apex util.get URL. This procedure is very nice. It takes in application ID, page ID, and all the stuff, and it generates the URL for you. Or as a minimum, prepare URL, right? Make sure that URL goes through these procedures, right? This adds support for session state protection, and that also makes sure that you are prepared for friendly URLs, right? If you don't, then you won't be. So if you have just the hard-coded f*p URLs which are not processed by Apex, that cool new feature is locked out for your application, right? So I could talk for the next hour, but I understand I have to stop now. Thanks a lot for your patience, and I hope there was something interesting for you. Thank you for your attention, and if you have questions, I'm here already.